In the apocalyptic writings of the book of Revelation, the writer, who calls himself John, sees a vision of a new heaven and a new earth, as the first heaven and the first earth pass away. There's a Celtic saying that heaven and earth are only 3 feet apart, but in the thin places, that distance is even smaller. Thin places, according to Celtic spirituality, are those places where the veil between heaven and earth is lifted, and the interchange between those of us on each side of the veil, the interchange between the living and the dead, is made more accessible. Thin places. Thin places are those places in which two seemingly separate worlds collide, or at least are opened up to one another in new and unexpected ways. It is no wonder then that in artistic renderings of thin places, they're most often associated and represented by wild wilderness landscapes. A thin place requires us to step from one world into another. And that often means traveling to a place where we have less control, where the unpredictable becomes the very means of discovery. The church has for centuries celebrated All Hallows Eve and All Saints' Day as just this kind of thin place. This feast that we embrace today puts us in that liminal space in which the worlds of the living and the dead are more porous. It is that place where we allow ourselves to become conscious of the ways that the lives of those who've gone before us still speak to us with power and possibility. But thin places are not confined to this particular day in the Christian year. Thin places emerge in our normal lives routinely. They emerge routinely if we are sensitive to their arrival. Whenever we're invited to touch a new world, while we are still living in the old world, that we're dwelling in a thin place. And we all know what that's like, don't we? Waiting on a diagnosis, we cannot help but imagine the world that awaits us. We try it out in our minds and find ourselves perched between, clinging to our present world of seeming safety, and then spiraling into an unknown future. Falling in love, we teeter between the control of a world that we know and the lure of losing ourselves in the world of another. Living through pregnancy, we feel the world of our own body change, our sense of having our own selves, merging with the frenetic joy of giving way to new life. Retiring to a new community, we feel the exhilaration and anxiety of letting go of a world of work that has both given us identity and purpose and has worn us out. We peer into the unknown world of time that is now ours, and the gifts that we have little used, dying for a chance to burst forth. Even spiritual communities can become dry and brittle as they seek to squeeze life out of a spiritual paradigm that is no longer relevant, until they are able to embrace the resurrection of a new heaven and a new earth underneath their feet. thin places. Thin places are frightening, even as they are life-giving. Thin places invite us to let go of, or at least to expand a world that has served us well in the past, without yet having the security of knowing how we will fully live in the new world that is calling us forth. We live much of our lives in thin places, with a world in each hand. And that is a necessary thing, because it's not easy or wise to give up something that has been of value, no matter how attractive the new possibility. But there comes a time for all of us, a time when the first world becomes so uninhabitable that living in a dying world becomes a greater risk than stepping into the new world that is before us. A new heaven and a new earth, ready and open to embrace us. In her book, My Grandfather's Blessing, Dr. Rachel Naomi Remen tells the story of giving a lecture on medicine and mystery to a group of medical students, and then inviting them to tell a story about an experience that they could not easily explain. A time when something occurred that changed them or caused them to wonder. In short, a time that opened them to the possibility of a new heaven and a new earth. Not an easy thing for scientists to do. One student told of reading aloud to his dying sister when suddenly he felt her arm on his hand. Glancing over, he saw that his sister's eyes were open and shining with excitement. She was staring at a blank wall. "Sam," his sister said, "look, there's someone here. Someone has come. Can you see him, Sam?" So he closed the book and looked very carefully at the wall. "I could not see a thing," he told the group, "but I could feel it. There was something in the room, a presence, deeply loving and infinitely kind. I'd never experienced such a thing before. My heart was drawn as if it were claimed. Deeply moved, he took his sister's hand. A few seconds passed, and then he had simply known that he was to become a doctor. After his sister died, he'd gone back to school, changed his major, and gone on to study medicine. After class, the student confessed that telling this story to other aspiring doctors had been a bit embarrassing, being that their profession was rooted in science. He told Dr. Remen privately, "Whatever it was that came from my sister had come for me too. It felt sort of like healing, a coming back to my true self. Perhaps it was that way for both of us," he said, staring off. In reflecting on this young man's story, Dr. Remen wrote, "All life has in it the dimension of the unknown, capital U. It is a thing forever unfolding. It seems important to consider the possibility that science may have defined life too small. And if we define life too small, we will define ourselves too small as well." I think this is something like what Jesus was trying to tell the Sadducees in today's gospel story. After they laid out their exasperating trick question about how earthly marriages might play out in heaven, Jesus cuts to the chase of their dullness. He essentially tells them, you can't carry this world with you into the next. The new world has a reality all its own. God is a God of the living, both in this world and in the next. God is a God of resurrection, of coming to life in whatever world we find ourselves. So stop living among the dead. Stop being dead to the worlds that call to you in your life. God will be in those worlds too. God will be ahead of you in all of life's many transitions. God will be able to give you a new song to sing in a land that now is foreign to you. In every wild landscape that you confront, in every thin place that calls you forward, God is alive and active. Friends, today we celebrate the Day of All Saints. Today we embrace life's thin and holy places. Today we step out with the God of living, the God